Welcome to the Broadview Podcast. You know, I want you to imagine checking your phone late at night.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there. Just totally exhausted.
Right, you are exhausted. The house is completely quiet, and you are just, mindlessly scrolling through your WhatsApp updates.
It's expecting the usual digital detritus, right?
Exactly, like pictures of someone's elaborate dinner, a couple of vacation photos.
Or maybe one of those overly bright, vague, inspirational quotes.
Yes, the toxic positivity ones. But instead, you stop on an update from a close friend and the text just reads, "What if the day of judgment has passed and we are already living in Jahannam?
Oh.
What if this is hell?" So today, we are taking a deep dive into the architecture of modern despair.
It's a heavy place to start, I know.
It really is. But we are going to look at the intricate mechanics of spiritual awakening and the profound challenge of finding beauty in a world that just aggressively insists on being dark.
Yeah, and that text message wasn't just a hypothetical scenario for me. It was a lived reality just a few weeks ago.
Wait, really? Someone actually posted that?
Yeah. The friend who posted it, let's just call her the healer, because her entire professional and personal life is really dedicated to mending the brokenness in others.
Oh, wow. So she is right in the thick of it.
She is deeply embedded in the trauma of the world. She just absorbs it. So when I read her status that night, with just the blue light of my phone illuminating the dark room.
Yeah, that eerie late-night glow.
Exactly. It didn't read like some late-night philosophical musing. It read like a genuine, terrifying conclusion that she drew from pure exhaustion.
I mean, it's the ultimate expression of spiritual fatigue. And frankly, it is a very logical conclusion if you are purely observing the mechanics of our current era.
Right. It makes sense on paper.
It does, because we are living through an age defined by overlapping systemic crises. You look at the violence, the economic crushing of the middle class.
The profound isolation, too.
Yes, even within our tight-knit South Asian communities, where everyone is supposedly connected, it's very easy to look around and think, hey, we missed the memo, the trial is over, and this is the punishment phase.
Yeah, welcome to the bad place.
Exactly. So how did you process that message in the moment? Because, the instinct when a friend says something like that is usually to just offer a platitude.
Oh, 100%. The instinct is to say, hey, hang in there, things will get better. But, platitudes are genuinely insulting to someone experiencing an existential crisis.
They really are. It feels so dismissive.
Right. But what struck me was my own internal, visceral reaction. Before my brain could even, formulate a theological argument, my intuition just slammed the brakes.
Really? Just an immediate rejection.
Yes. My entire body felt a categorical, absolute no. I didn't have to map out a rational defense initially. My spirit just recognized that her premise, while emotionally valid, was fundamentally incorrect.
So what did you do?
I texted her immediately. And I didn't send a heart emoji or anything soft. I sent a very blunt no. This isn't Jahannam.
Wow. But, intuition is a private language.
It is.
It makes perfect sense to the person feeling it, but you can't exactly transfer your intuition to someone else, like a file over Bluetooth.
I wish you could, honestly.
Right. Because when you are standing in the sunlight, you know the sun is warm. But if she is trapped in a windowless room, your description of the sun doesn't really warm her up. She needed a mechanism to understand your certainty.
And that is the exact friction we hit. She texted back within seconds and just said, "How are you so sure?"
Oh, that's a tough question to answer at, midnight?
It was. And that forced me to reverse engineer my intuition. I had to build a rational bridge over to her side of the abyss. And for me, that bridge is always built from the foundational concepts of the Quran.
Okay, so where do you even start with that?
I started by looking at the binary opposite of her fear, which is the concept of Jannah, of heaven. If you ask most people to describe heaven, especially within our cultural milieu, they immediately default to the physical imagery.
Right. The rivers of milk, the honey, the shade of lush orchards, eternal youth.
Precisely, the ultimate material compensation package for difficult life.
Huh. Yeah, exactly. The cosmic retirement plan.
Right. But if you strip away the metaphor and look at the core psychological definition of paradise offered in the text, it is defined by a specific emotional vacuum.
An emotional vacuum? What do you mean?
The most profound description of heaven is that it is a state where the inhabitants have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. It is the absolute cessation of grief.
Oh, wow. Let's break that down because human psychology is entirely predicated on those two exact pillars.
It really is.
Neurologically, we are just constantly oscillating between mourning the past and fearing the future. I mean, grief is the anchor that drags behind us, weighing down every memory of what we've lost.
The mistakes we've made.
Yeah, the people who have slipped away. And fear or anxiety is the grappling hook we throw into the future, anticipating all the ways things might go wrong.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it, the anchor and the grappling hook.
Thanks. So if you remove grief and fear, you are essentially dismantling the human ego's primary operating system.
You are. The cessation of grief isn't just feeling happy. It is a fundamental restructuring of human consciousness.
Right. You're not just smiling more.
No, it is the ability to exist purely in the present moment, saturated in peace, without the amygdala constantly scanning for threats or your memory constantly recalling trauma.
So how did you use that to answer her?
Well, I conceded a major point to her right off the bat. I said, look at our world, saturated as it is with systemic anxiety, generational trauma, and profound personal grief. This reality clearly does not fit the criteria of Jannat. We are definitely not in heaven.
Which brings us to the more terrifying part of her question, right?
Yep.
If it isn't heaven, why isn't it hell?
Exactly. So I told her to look at the defining characteristics of Jahannam. In our tradition, hell is not just characterized by physical pain. It is defined as the absolute absence of aesthetics.
An absence of aesthetics.
Yes. It is an aesthetic void. The word we use is zinat,
That's true.
ornament, beauty, harmony. Hell is the complete stripping away of all zinat.
So it's basically a sensory deprivation chamber for the soul. It's not just fire, it's the ugliness of the fire.
Yes, exactly. I texted her there would be no music in Jahannam. And I meant that both literally and metaphorically. There would be no symmetry, no sweet fragrance, no cool breeze.
For comfort of a familiar voice.
None of it. No art. The very fact that we have these things in this life, that we can step outside after a brutal day and smell the petrichor, the midiki kushbu, after the monsoon rains.
Oh, that is the best smell in the world.
It really is. Or that we can hear a beautifully composed piece of music that moves us to tears. All of that proves that this is a middle ground. This is the dunya. Yes, the dunya is a place of rigorous testing, yes. But it is deeply woven with threads of absolute beauty. Hell has no such threads.
Okay, but let me push back on this logic for a second.
Go ahead.
If the presence of beauty is the empirical proof that we are not in hell, what happens to the person whose internal receptor for beauty is broken?
Oh, that is the dark side of it.
Because severe depression, the kind of despair I imagine the healer was facing, it literally dulls the senses. Food tastes like ash. Colors seem muted.
It just sounds like noise.
Exactly. If a soul loses its ability to perceive zenith, hasn't that person already crossed the threshold into their own localized psychological hell, even while they're physically walking around in the dunya?
That is the terrifying reality of despair. And it is exactly the mechanism that makes hopelessness so dangerous. It creates a localized hell.
So how did she respond to the music comment?
When I told her there is no music in hell, her response was devastating. She texted, "There is no music in my life right now."
Oh, wow. She was confirming exactly what we just said.
Yes. Her receptors were shut down. The beauty of the dunya was completely inaccessible to her.
So how do you counter that? I mean, you can't just argue someone into feeling beauty. Logic is essentially useless against anhedonia.
You are so right. You can't argue it. You have to demonstrate it. You have to bypass the cognitive defense mechanisms entirely. So I stopped texting philosophy.
What did you do?
I went into my music library, and I found a specific composition. It was a duet featuring a rabab, which, carries the raw, echoing, mountainous soul of our region.
Oh, I loved a rabab.
And it was paired with the cello, which brings this deep, weeping, structured resonance. It's a piece that doesn't demand you to be happy. It just demands that you feel its profound, melancholic beauty.
Okay.
I sent the audio file to her with absolutely no explanation.
That is a very high-risk maneuver. If she ignores it, the bridge collapses.
It was a massive risk, but I knew I had to offer an experience, not an argument. So I waited. 10 minutes passed, and then my phone buzzed.
Oh.
She replied with a single, simple smiley face emoji. Just that.
Wow. Just a smile.
Yeah. And I immediately texted back, "See, there are no smiles in Jahannam."
That is a brilliant intervention. You proved her own existence in the dunya using her own reaction as the evidence.
Thank you. It felt like a breakthrough.
But, this localized hell she was experiencing, this inability to hear the music, it points to a much broader epidemic.
It really does.
When you look at the landscape of modern thought, particularly the rise of modern atheism or aggressive agnosticism, it feels like this localized hell has been industrialized. It has become the default worldview for an entire generation.
I have spent years having deep, exhausting dialogues with highly educated, brilliantly articulate atheists. And my synthesis of these interactions always brings me back to one realization.
What is that?
Well, we operate under this collective assumption that modern atheism is the triumph of the Enlightenment, right? We think it's the result of pure detached rationalism, where science finally conquered superstition.
Right, the whole facts over feelings aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. But when you truly dig into the subtext of their arguments, when you strip away the debates about evolutionary biology and cosmology, the bedrock of their disbelief isn't logic.
What is it then?
It is profound, devastating hopelessness.
Hopelessness. That challenges the entire self-proclaimed identity of the new atheist movement. They pride themselves on being the stoic realists who don't need the crutch of religion.
Right.
But you are saying the rejection of God is actually a trauma response to the state of the world.
Absolutely. They look at the world and they see precisely what Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, saw millennia ago when he stepped outside his palace.
Which was?
They see sarvam dukkam. They see a world fundamentally characterized by suffering. We need to be very precise here because the English word suffering is a very blunt instrument for translating the concept of dukkha.
Right, because if it just meant physical pain, you could argue that modern medicine has cured a lot of dukkha.
Exactly.
But the malaise is deeper than a toothache or a broken bone.
Precisely. A much more accurate, albeit clunky, translation of dukkha is unsatisfactoriness.
Unsatisfactoriness.
Yeah. The Buddha realized that human desire is on a collision course with the fundamental nature of the physical universe, which is impermanence. We are biologically and psychologically wired to seek permanence.
Oh, that makes so much sense. We want our youth to last.
We want our health to remain robust.
We want the fiery passion of new love to never cool down.
And we want our loved ones to live forever. But the phenomenal world simply cannot sustain any of these things.
It's like trying to build a fortress out of dry sand while
The tide is rushing in.
the tide is rushing in. And the South Asian cultural script is actually a perfect engine for this exact type of unsatisfactoriness.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Seriously. We are taught from childhood to chase these very specific markers of permanence. Get the bulletproof degree, secure the government or corporate job, buy the concrete house, get married, have children.
The ultimate checklist.
Exactly. We are sold this idea that if you check these boxes, you will achieve static, permanent security. And then people hit their mid-30s, they have the house and the job, and they wake up feeling completely hollow.
Because the sandcastle is built, but the water is still eroding it.
Exactly. And that hollowness is exactly where modern atheism takes root, isn't it?
It is. When you realize that the world is inherently unsatisfactory, that it will inevitably disappoint you, break your heart, and ultimately take everything away from you, the cognitive leap for many modern thinkers is very specific.
What is the leap?
They think if the creation is this disappointing, the creator must be a myth. They equate the impermanence of the dunya with the absence of God.
But isn't there a massive logical flaw in that leap?
How do you mean?
Well, why does the desire for permanence prove there is no God? Couldn't you argue the exact opposite?
Go on.
If we are born with a physical hunger, it implies the existence of food. If we are born with a physical thirst, it implies the existence of water. So, if the human soul has a desperate, undeniable hunger for permanence, doesn't that imply that permanence must exist somewhere, just not in the material world?
You have just articulated the core premise of Sufi epistemology.
Really?
Yes. The desire itself is not a glitch. The Buddha correctly diagnosed the disease. We suffer because we seek permanence in impermanent things. But the spiritual traditions offer a very different cure than nihilism.
Which is?
The compass inside the human heart that points toward permanence is working perfectly fine. The problem is that we are holding it near a magnet, pointing it at the wrong north.
Oh, I love that analogy.
We are pointing it at our careers, our spouses, our bank accounts. In our tradition, the recalibration of that compass is summarized in the foundational axiom, La ilaha illallah.
There is no God but God.
Right. But in this context, I'm translating it beyond just a statement of monotheism.
How so?
On a deeper experiential level, it translates to there is no reality but the ultimate reality. There is no permanence but the ultimate permanent.
Oh, wow. So you were saying that the desire is fine. The target is just wrong.
Exactly. When you detach your demand for permanence from the shifting sands of the dunya and attach it directly to the divine, the desire is no longer doomed to disappointment. It is finally anchored.
That is profound.
This is why Sufism isn't just a set of ethical guidelines. It is a technology of the soul. It is the experiential antidote to atheism, because it doesn't just tell you about permanence, it provides the practices to let you actually taste that permanence here and now.
It cures the disease of hopelessness by pulling you out of the timeline of decay.
Beautifully said.
So how did this apply to the healer? Because knowing this intellectually is one thing, but when she was in that dark space, knowing that her compass was pointing the wrong way wouldn't necessarily stop the pain.
It wouldn't.
How did her side of the conversation evolve once you established that she wasn't actually in hell?
Well, she clarified her emotional state in a way that was honestly chillingly poetic. She wanted me to understand she wasn't having a panic attack. She wasn't frantic. She texted, "Demand for death is sometimes a serene demand."
A serene demand. That is, wow, there is something deeply seductive about that phrasing.
Seductive is the exact word.
It sounds like a surrender, like a swimmer who has been fighting a riptide for hours and finally, peacefully, decides to just stop kicking and let the water take them under. It masquerades as peace.
It absolutely masquerades as peace, but it is a counterfeit peace. It is the terminal stage of hopelessness.
So how do you disrupt that?
When you are frantic, you still have energy, you are still fighting.
Mm-hmm.
When you are serene in your demand for the end, it means the hopelessness has completely metastasized. I couldn't let her sit in that false serenity.
What did you say?
I texted back immediately, aggressively disrupting that thought. I said, "Demand for death comes from the disease of hopelessness."
You named the disease. You didn't let her dress it up as serenity.
I couldn't afford to.
And how did she respond to being called out like that?
She asked the most fundamental, difficult question anyone can ask in that state. She asked, "But then what is hope?"
And that is a trap, isn't it?
Huge trap.
If you answer that poorly, you sound like a motivational poster. Hope is believing in tomorrow. It sounds incredibly cheap to someone who is actively suffering. How do you define hope in a way that can actually bear the weight of her despair?
I told her that hope, in its true spiritual dimension, is not optimism.
Right.
Optimism is a psychological disposition. It's hoping the weather is nice tomorrow. Spiritual hope is tawakkul.
Tawakkul.
Yes, it is absolute dynamic reliance and trust in the capabilities of an almighty God. But to explain tawakkul, I had to explain the architecture of belief, because you cannot just conjure trust out of thin air. It has to be built.
Walk us through that. How is belief built?
Belief exists in stratified layers. The foundational layer is submission, or Islam. This is the realm of the physical, the perceptible, the external.
Like the rituals.
Exactly. It is the actions you perform with your body. Standing in prayer, fasting from dawn to dusk, giving your wealth to charity, bearing witness with your tongue. Anyone who executes these physical dimensions has achieved submission. They are a Muslim.
But submission is just the framework, right? It's the scaffolding. You can build the scaffolding without ever actually constructing the building inside it.
Exactly. And the text makes a very sharp distinction here. The word for one who submits, a Muslim, is not synonymous with the word for a true believer, a mu'min.
What is the difference?
Belief, or Iman, is a subtle internal reality. Submission belongs to the limbs, but belief belongs to the deepest recesses of the heart and the architecture of your thoughts.
That makes a lot of sense.
There is a deeply illustrative moment in the Quran regarding a group of Bedouins who had recently aligned themselves with the Prophet. They came forward, very proud of their new allegiance and declared, "We have faith, we have Iman."
And what happened?
The divine revelation corrected them immediately. They were told, "You do not have faith. Rather say, we have submitted, for faith has not yet entered your hearts."
That distinction is everything. Let me frame it with a cultural analogy for our listeners.
Please do.
Think about a classical Kathak dancer.
Okay, perfect.
You can teach someone the sheer physical mechanics of the dance. They can tie the heavy brass gumboos around their ankles. They can learn the exact mathematical precision of the footwork, the tatkar.
Right, the striking of the floor.
Exactly. They know precisely when to strike the floor. They know the exact geometric angles to hold their arms, the mudras. They can execute a flawless, physically exhausting performance. They have submitted to the rules of the choreography.
Yes, the physical submission is complete.
But if that dancer is completely deaf to the music, if they do not feel the rasa, the emotional essence of the narrative, their performance is technically perfect but spiritually dead.
Yeah.
They are doing the math, but they aren't feeling the poetry. They are moving correctly, but they have no internal rhythm. Practicing the rituals of faith without Iman is exactly like being a deaf Kathak dancer. You are exhausted by the effort, but you aren't experiencing the divine music.
That is a staggering analogy. It perfectly captures the exhaustion of modern religious practice for so many people. They are doing the footwork, but they're deaf to the music.
It's just a workout at that point.
Exactly. Iman is when you finally hear the music.
Yeah.
And when true faith enters the heart, when the music swells inside you, the inevitable, unavoidable result is tawakkul, trust.
Because the music proves the existence of the composer.
Exactly. If you genuinely have Iman, if you believe down to your marrow that a compassionate, all-powerful, ultimate permanent exists, then hopelessness becomes an illogical state of being.
Because the variables change.
Yes. Hopelessness means you have assessed the variables of your situation and concluded that it is mathematically impossible to repair. It is the declaration of finality.
Yeah.
But if you have tawakkul, you recognize that your math is irrelevant.
Because the ultimate permanent is not bound by the variables of the dunya.
The creator of the rules can suspend the rules. Therefore, the genuine existence of God in your heart deals a fatal blow to both the arrogance of atheism and the paralyzing sadness of despair.
I see the logical progression, but I also know human nature.
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
Well, when someone is entrenched in that localized hell and you tell them the cure is to hear the music, to have faith, the defense mechanisms flare up. It feels dismissive, even if it's true. Did the healer accept this progression?
She rejected it beautifully.
Of course she did.
She threw up the ultimate defense. She texted back, "But what do I hope for? I don't need anything."
I don't need anything. That is fascinating. That isn't just sorrow, that is a fortress.
It is.
It's not that her cup is empty and she is begging for water. She is claiming her cup is full, or rather, that she has sealed it completely shut.
When I read that sentence,
Yeah.
my mind instantly transported back to the geography of my youth, back to Kashmir.
Oh, I love the stories from there.
Kashmir is a land steeped in a profound, mystical Sufi tradition. The air there holds stories of spiritual masters the way other places hold humidity. Her response reminded me of one of my absolute favorite oral traditions.
Let's hear it. The stories from that region always operate on multiple levels of consciousness. Set the scene for us.
It's the story of an encounter between two towering spiritual heavyweights of the region, Maktoum Sahib and Baba Haider Rishi, who the people lovingly call Reshmal Sahib.
Okay.
Maktoum Sahib was traveling to visit Reshmal Sahib. Now, Reshmal Sahib was a man of intense spiritual rigor, a master in his own right, but he wanted to make a point about his own spiritual completion before Maktoum Sahib even arrived.
A little spiritual posturing.
Exactly. So when Maktoum Sahib entered, Reshmal Sahib presented him with a clay cup of milk. But it wasn't just a regular cup of milk. It was filled to the absolute microscopic brim.
Surface tension.
Yes. The surface tension of the white liquid was bowed perfectly at the edge of the clay.
Oh, wow. So a single breath would make it spill over.
Exactly. The insinuation was perfectly clear, delivered without a single word. Reshmal Sahib was saying visually exactly what the healer had texted me. My spiritual cup is full. I have reached the absolute zenith of practice. I don't need anything. You can add nothing to my state.
It's an incredibly polite but firm spiritual flex. How did Maktoum Sahib respond to that kind of boundary?
He didn't argue. He didn't debate theology with him. He simply reached into his robes, brought out a few delicate strands of pure Kashmiri saffron stigmas.
Which is one of the most precious, potent substances on Earth.
It is. And he gently dropped them onto the taut surface of the milk.
Oh, the tension of that moment.
The milk did not spill. The liquid simply yielded to the saffron, absorbing it. And slowly, right before Reshmal Sahib's eyes, the stark white milk was infused with this rich golden hue, and the entire room was suddenly filled with this intoxicating, unmistakable divine fragrance.
That is profound. It's an intellectual checkmate, but executed with absolute grace.
It was a beautiful lesson. Maktoum Sahib was showing him, look, no matter how full you think your cup is, no matter how much you believe you don't need anything, there is always, always room for the divine fragrance.
We are so bad at assessing our own spiritual capacity, aren't we?
We humans are incredibly bad at it. We think we are full when we are merely sealed shut. We all need that specific something that uncovers the heart so the divine presence can actually manifest itself inside us.
And that process of uncovering, of opening the sealed cup, that is what is known in the tradition as kashrite, the unveiling.
Yes, Kosh. The premise is that the human heart, in its default original state, is naturally receptive to divine light. It is designed to absorb the saffron. But through the friction of living, the heart becomes veiled. It gets covered in layers of spiritual plaque.
Let's investigate the nature of that plaque. If our natural state is permeability, what are we doing that is constructing this impenetrable lid over our hearts? Is it just the trauma of the world doing it to us, or are we actively building it ourselves?
We are the architects of our own veils, unfortunately. The veils are woven primarily from arrogance, obstinacy, and a refusal to acknowledge our inherent vulnerability.
Arrogance.
Yeah. When we stubbornly refuse to see the beauty in the world, when we walk past the signs of the divine because we're too obsessed with our own egos, we thicken the veil. The person who cannot see beauty is a veiled person.
It reminds me of the descriptions of people who have eyes but don't see.
The texts describe this state ruthlessly. They have eyes, but they do not see.
Hmm.
They have ears, but they do not hear. It is a self-imposed state of being spiritually deaf, dumb, and blind.
It's a total sensory shutdown. But I mean, people in that state rarely realize they're blind. They usually think they're the only ones seeing reality clearly.
Exactly. And the tradition provides incredibly potent parables to help us visualize the mechanics of this self-imposed darkness.
Share one with us.
Okay, imagine a man wandering in a freezing, pitch-black desert. After hours of desperation, he finally manages to kindle a fire.
Okay, a moment of triumph.
Right. The flames leap up, illuminating his surroundings. He feels warm, he feels secure, he feels like he has conquered the elements. He's incredibly proud of his fire. But then, because of his deep-seated arrogance and his refusal to acknowledge the source of his materials, God takes away the light of the fire.
Wait, God takes away the light but leaves the fire.
Yes, the physical combustion is still happening. The heat is still there. But the illumination is stripped away. The man is left in utter, impenetrable darkness, completely blind to the reality around him, despite sitting right next to a roaring fire.
Wow.
He is trapped in a darkness that he mistakenly believes is under his control.
That is a terrifying psychological state, and it perfectly mirrors the modern condition.
Doesn't it?
It does, because we have built massive fires of technological and economic progress. We have the heat, we have the comforts, the medicine, the infrastructure. We think we are in control.
Right.
But the illumination, the actual meaning of why we are alive, has been stripped away. We are sitting next to a nuclear reactor in pitch darkness.
That is a flawless modern application of the parable. We mistake the heat for the light. And there's another parable that goes even deeper into our psychological resistance to truth.
What's that one?
Imagine a group of people caught in a violent torrential thunderstorm at night. The rain is lashing, the wind is howling, it is absolute chaos. Occasionally, a massive bolt of lightning tears across the sky, completely illuminating the landscape in stark, terrifying, high-definition clarity.
Okay, so it shows them the reality of their situation.
Exactly. It shows them exactly where the cliffs are, where the shelter is, where the path lies.
But let me guess, they don't use the light to walk.
No. Instead of using that brief, intense flash of truth to navigate, they're so terrified of the thunder, they're so afraid of the reality the lightning reveals, that they jam their fingers into their ears and squeeze their eyes tightly shut.
They blind themselves.
They actively blind and deafen themselves to avoid the overwhelming nature of the truth. They prefer the familiar terror of the dark over the demanding clarity of the light.
I want to pause here because, listener, you need to really interrogate this thunderstorm metaphor in your own life. How often do we do exactly that?
Too often.
How often does a moment of profound realization hit us, maybe during a crisis or the loss of a loved one, or even just a quiet moment of clarity, and instead of following that truth, we find it too demanding?
It demands change.
It demands that we change our habits, our relationships, our priorities. So we plug our ears, we open up social media, we turn on Netflix, and we just wait for the darkness to return because the dark is less demanding.
We constantly choose the dark because the light requires action. So to bring it back to the healer, when she asked, "What do I hope for when I don't need anything?" the answer is, you hope for the courage to open your eyes during the thunderstorm.
You hope for the cash.
Yes. You hope for the unveiling. You hope for the light, the nerve to penetrate your self-imposed darkness. Because the tradition tells us unequivocally, God is the light of the heavens and the earth.
So if the veils are our arrogance and the darkness is our obstinacy, what does it look like when that specific divine light finally breaches the fortress? What is the architecture of an awakened heart?
The visual provided in the text for an awakened heart is one of those mesmerizing pieces of imagery in human history. Imagine a niche carved into a wall. Inside that niche rests a lamp.
Okay.
The lamp is entirely encased in a crystal glass, And this glass has been polished so perfectly, it is so free of arrogance and plaque that it shines like a brilliant piercing star.
So the heart is the glass. It's not the light itself. It's the vessel for the light.
Exactly. And the fuel for this lamp is the oil of a blessed lush olive tree. But this tree is described as being neither of the East nor of the West. It defies geography and human tribalism. It is a universal source.
I love that. Universal.
The oil itself is of such pure, luminous quality that it seems as though it would glow and radiate light even if no physical fire ever touched it. It is quite literally light upon light.
Light upon light. That is the absolute antithesis of the Jahannam we started with. We began with an aesthetic void, a sensory deprivation chamber. And here we have the ultimate aesthetic triumph. A light so pure, it doesn't even need a flame.
It is the ultimate reality. But, there is a massive caveat that kind of shatters our modern sense of entitlement.
What's the caveat?
This light cannot be hacked.
Yeah.
It cannot be earned just by reading enough books or meditating hard enough. It is a gift. God guides to his light whomsoever he wills.
Ah, divine grace.
Exactly. Without that divine grace, a person can walk through the most beautiful landscapes, read the most profound philosophies, and remain utterly blind. Their life's work becomes like a mirage in a desolate desert.
They think they're heading towards water.
The thirsty traveler runs toward what he thinks is water, but when he arrives, panting and exhausted, he finds nothing but burning sand. Or worse, their reality is like a person trapped deep in a vast black ocean.
The layers of darkness again.
Waves crash over waves. Thick storm clouds blot out the sky. It is layers of darkness piled upon each other, so dense that if a person holds out their own hand right in front of their face, they cannot see it.
Wow. If the human condition is so precarious, if we can be walking around in these deep sea layers of darkness, completely blind to our own hands, mistaking mirages for water, how can we trust anything?
It's destabilizing, isn't it?
Our entire conversation right now feels like it's destabilizing the ground I'm sitting on. How do we even know that the reality we are experiencing, the room we're sitting in, isn't just another layer of the dream?
You're tracking exactly with the psychological progression of my conversation with the healer. Once we established that the veils exist, her despair mutated into acute existential disorientation.
Oh, man.
She confessed something that I think many modern people feel but are too afraid to say out loud. She said that life had become a blur. She couldn't distinguish between dream states and waking reality anymore.
The boundaries just dissolved.
Yeah, and she wasn't sure if anything she was experiencing was actually real.
That is the absolute terrifying floor of the abyss. When you lose the distinction between what is real and what is a projection, the hopelessness isn't just emotional anymore, it's structural.
You can't throw a rope to someone who doesn't believe the rope exists.
Exactly. So how do you pull someone out of that kind of Cartesian nightmare?
It's funny you use that specific word because to throw her an anchor, I completely pivoted away from Eastern mysticism. I went straight to the architect of modern Western rationalism. I invoked René Descartes.
Wait, what?
Yes, specifically his foundational proposition from his meditations. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
Okay, I have to push back here.
Bring it.
You are trying to cure a Sufi-level spiritual crisis with a 17th century French rationalist, the guy who effectively birthed the mechanical worldview that caused a lot of this modern alienation in the first place.
I know.
How does Descartes solve the blur between dream and reality?
It seems paradoxical, but it works precisely because Descartes started his philosophy by diving into the exact same abyss the healer was in. Descartes engaged in radical methodological doubt.
He doubted everything.
He realized that you can doubt the validity of your senses. You can doubt that the sky is blue. You can doubt that the people you were talking to aren't just figments of a dream. He even posited the evil demon thought experiment.
The evil demon.
Yeah, what if an omnipotent, malicious entity is constantly deceiving your brain and your entire physical body is just an illusion?
Essentially the plot of The Matrix centuries before the movie. So he destroys all external reality. Where is the anchor?
The anchor is found in the act of destruction itself.
Yeah.
Descartes realized that while he could doubt the existence of absolutely everything in the universe, the one thing he could not logically doubt was the fact that he was doubting.
Because doubting requires an agent.
Exactly. To doubt is a form of thought, and thought requires a thinker. Even if an evil demon is deceiving you, you must exist in order to be deceived.
Well, that's clever.
Therefore, the very capacity to doubt your own existence is the unassailable mathematical proof of your existence. An absolute bedrock of certainty is reached. You exist.
But wait.
But I had to clarify a crucial point to her. Doubting, in this philosophical sense, is not the same as modern cynicism. Cynicism is a lazy assumption that everything is fake. Cartesian doubt is an active, rigorous participation in the search for truth.
Okay, so you establish the bedrock, you exist because you are currently questioning your existence, but that only solves half the problem. She knows she exists, but how does she know if she is awake or dreaming?
This is where we fuse the Cartesian bedrock back into the Sufi framework. I completely redefined the definition of a dream for her.
How did you define it?
I told her, in the spiritual realm, separating a dream from reality is actually quite simple. A dream is any state of consciousness where you are veiled from God's light.
Oh, wow.
When you are sleepwalking through your days, driven entirely by your base desires, protecting your ego, obsessed with the impermanent dunya, you are literally in a dream state. It is an illusion.
In reality.
Reality, true, high-definition reality, is only achieved when you are fully in your spiritual senses, awake, and bathed in the nur, the divine light.
I want to make sure I'm grasping the magnitude of this synthesis. You are saying that a spiritual awakening is not just a poetic metaphor for becoming a nicer person.
Not at all.
It is literally waking up from the Cartesian dream. The person entirely obsessed with material wealth isn't just greedy, they are hallucinating. They are reacting to shadows on the cave wall.
Moving into faith is moving from a state of psychosis into reality.
It is exactly that. Sin, arrogance, and despair are forms of spiritual psychosis. Faith is returning to sanity.
But of course the healer, being razor sharp, immediately identified the catch. She asked, if waking up is just a matter of opening my eyes to the light, is it easy? How do I get back to my senses?
It's the million-dollar question. If we are hallucinating, how do we snap out of it? Is it as easy as just deciding to wake up?
I was honest with her. I told her it is simultaneously the easiest thing in the world and the most impossible, depending entirely on divine grace.
So grace again.
Coming back to reality requires the will of the ultimate permanent. If a person is perpetually arrogant, if they actively love the darkness and rebel against every flash of lightning, God will leave them to wander blindly in their self-constructed dream.
They will drown in those deep-sea layers of dark.
But for those who humble themselves, for those who admit their cup is sealed and actively beg for the cash, the unveiling is made astonishingly easy.
Let's assume the grace is granted. The person humbles themselves, the veil is lifted, the glass of the lamp is wiped clean of the arrogance, and their eyes finally adjust to the light. When they look around at the world, what do they actually see? What is the fabric of this high-definition reality?
When the spiritual psychosis breaks, the ultimate reality you see woven into every atom of the universe is beauty, because the fundamental overarching character of the divine is beauty. God is beautiful, and he loves beauty.
We need to unpack this carefully, because historically religious frameworks heavily emphasize power, omnipotence, and strict justice. We are taught to fear the wrath.
Right, the fire and brimstone.
But you are positioning beauty as the core defining characteristic of the creator. How does that practically manifest in the world?
Think about the ontological status of the universe. Everything that exists, the mountains, the oceans, the stars, you, me, the chair you are sitting on, is a dependent reality.
Meaning it can't exist on its own.
Right. None of it sustains itself. It all relies on the divine to maintain its existence from millisecond to millisecond. But when we observe this dependent creation, what actually bypasses our logic and pierces the human heart?
The aesthetic.
Yes, it is perfect mathematical symmetry in a fern leaf. It is the breathtaking expanse of a purple sunset over a snow-capped mountain range. It is the overwhelming fragrance of jasmine at night.
Or even human actions, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving beyond the physical, it is the profound moral beauty of a mother sacrificing her meal for her child, or a stranger stepping in front of danger to protect someone they don't know. What are we actually witnessing in those moments?
We are witnessing something that feels transcendent. It feels like the veil is briefly thinning.
It feels transcendent because it literally is. Those flashes of profound worldly beauty are what the Sufis call tajalli.
Tajalli.
Yes, tajalli is the unveiling, the physical manifestation of a microscopic fraction of God's own attribute in the realm of creation. It is as if the ultimate permanent lends a tiny shimmering glimmer of his own character to the phenomenal world.
So we are reacting to the source, not the object.
The human heart is so utterly mesmerized by a beautiful sunset or a beautiful piece of music because, at its core, the heart remembers its origin. It yearns for God.
It's like a lover, you know.
Exactly. It is the exact psychology of a lover separated from their beloved. Imagine you are thousands of miles away from the person you love most. You are walking down a crowded, dirty street, and suddenly a passing breeze carries the exact scent of their perfume.
You would stop dead in your
You will
tracks.
freeze. Your heart will race. You aren't in love with the breeze. You are mesmerized because the breeze carries the signature of the beloved.
That is a gorgeous way to explain it.
The beautiful things in this dunya appear beautiful to us because they are the signature of the most beautiful. Tajalli is God revealing his character right in front of our eyes.
I want to highlight this for everyone listening because this completely upends how we interact with the world. We usually treat beauty as a luxury. We think of it as a nice aesthetic bonus to an otherwise brutal and difficult life.
We do. We trivialize it.
But if beauty is tajalli, then beauty is actually a breadcrumb trail. It is a highly deliberate map leading us out of the dark forest of despair, pointing us directly back to the source.
A breadcrumb trail is the perfect analogy. And the degree to which you can see those breadcrumbs, the degree to which you can spot the tajalli in the mundane world around you, is the exact, unforgeable metric of your God awareness.
So if you are veiled, you miss the trail.
If your heart is heavily veiled in arrogance, you walk right past the sunset. You ignore the symmetry of the leaf, you take the stranger's kindness for granted, and you feel nothing.
But if you polish the glass,
The more you polish the glass of your heart, the more conscious you become, the more beauty you see everywhere. And the ultimate destination of following that trail of breadcrumbs is finding the source of all beauty itself.
this is a soaring, intellectually beautiful framework. But, I'm always cautious about getting trapped in the clouds.
Of course, we have to bring it down to earth.
If our purpose is to recognize this beauty, how do we actively participate in it? How do we take this concept of tajalli and apply it on a Tuesday morning when we are exhausted, stuck in traffic, dealing with a passive-aggressive boss, and worrying about paying the bills? The healer must have asked for the practical application, too.
She did. After we traversed all of this, from hell to atheism to Descartes to beauty, her final, most grounding question was simply, how do I practice faith?
And what did you say?
My answer to her, which is kind of the distillation of this entire deep dive, was just one sentence. Like what you do and do what is beautiful.
Like what you do and do what is beautiful. It sounds like a proverb. But based on the architecture we've built today, I know there are oceans of behavioral psychology beneath those words.
There are. To understand how to do what is beautiful, we have to return to that three-tiered architecture of belief we discussed earlier. We talked about Islam, the outward physical submission. We talked about Iman, the inward subtle belief.
Right.
But there's a third, highest, and most incredibly difficult dimension. It's called Ihsan.
Ihsan. I know that term is often translated as excellence, but how does it connect back to beauty?
The linguistic root of the word Ihsan is the exact same root as the word for beauty, hus.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
In the foundational tradition known as the Hadith of Gabriel, the angel interrogates the prophet on the definitions of the faith. After establishing submission and belief, the angel asks, what is Ihsan?
And the answer.
The answer provided is the ultimate, terrifyingly high blueprint for human consciousness. Ihsan is to worship and act in everything you do as if you were looking directly at God. And if you cannot achieve that level of spiritual vision, you must act with the absolute, unshakable certainty that God is looking directly at you.
That is a staggering operational standard. To perform every mundane task as if you were standing in the direct, unblinking gaze of the divine, that requires an unbelievable amount of cognitive presence. How does a normal, flawed human being even begin to approach that state?
It requires the cultivation of a specific trait called hikmah, which translates to wisdom. But wisdom in this context is not just knowing a lot of facts.
Right, because facts don't equal wisdom.
Exactly. Hikmah is the precise ability to place things exactly where they belong and to do things exactly how they ought to be done in the proper proportion.
Give me an analogy for hikmah. We often confuse having access to information with having wisdom.
Let's ditch the old cliches and think about it like a master sound engineer at a massive concert. Knowledge is knowing how to plug in the microphones, knowing what a guitar is, and knowing how to turn the volume up.
Okay, that's just the mechanics.
A person with mere knowledge might just push all the sliders up to 10. The result is deafening, chaotic noise. Wisdom, hikmah, is knowing exactly how to balance the frequencies. It's knowing when to pull the bass back, when to elevate the vocals, when to let a momentary silence hang in the air. The sound engineer places the sounds exactly where they belong to create harmony.
So how does that apply to daily life?
Doing what is beautiful means acting as the sound engineer of your own life.
Right.
Whether you are drafting a legal brief, cooking a meal for your family, or resolving a bitter conflict, you apply hikmah. You balance the moment with God consciousness.
You know, as you describe this process of performing an action perfectly, beautifully, with total presence, but without making it about yourself, it strongly parallels another major philosophical tradition from our part of the world.
Which one?
It sounds almost identical to Krishna's teaching of Nishkam Karma to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita.
I am thrilled you drew that connection, because the philosophical resonance is absolute. The Gita is set on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is the ultimate metaphor for the chaotic dunya.
Exactly.
Krishna teaches Arjuna Nishkam Karma, which is the practice of executing your duty, performing your actions perfectly and beautifully, but doing so with zero attachment to the fruits of the action.
And no ego.
And crucially, without the arrogance of the ego claiming authorship of the work. In our Sufi tradition, that destructive ego is called ana. To perform a truly beautiful act, the ana must be annihilated.
Because true submission requires the death of the ego. It goes back to the lamp in the niche we talked about earlier. You cannot be the clear crystal glass reflecting the divine light if you are constantly standing center stage, blocking the light with your own self-importance.
Arrogance is the dirt that clouds the glass. If you demand praise for your actions, you aren't doing it beautifully. You are just feeding the ana.
Exactly. The spiritual texts constantly speak of true submission, using language of profound humility, lowering one's wings, walking softly on the earth. Conversely, rejection and disbelief are always described with the language of physical arrogance, puffing up the chest, turning the cheek away in pride.
You physically cannot walk pridefully upon the earth and practice Ihsan at the same time. They are mutually exclusive states of physics. The death of the ego is the prerequisite for the beauty of the divine to flow through your actions unobstructed.
So, when we pursue this kind of conscious, beautiful, egoless action, we elevate the most mundane aspects of our lives into something grand. But, this completely redefines our traditional institutional understanding of religious practice.
It really does.
When most people hear practicing faith, they immediately picture the ritual prayers, the salat, performed at specific times of the day. Does this concept of beauty replace that?
It doesn't replace it, it radically expands it. We tend to compartmentalize our lives. We think, I am worshiping for these 10 minutes on the prayer mat and the rest of the day is secular.
Right, checking the box.
The 5 daily ritual prayers are the foundational pillars, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the Quranic vision of salat, of worship, is vastly more comprehensive than just the physical postures. If Ihsan is doing everything as if you see God, then every single act, from sweeping the floor to comforting a crying child, done with God consciousness, hope, and an intention for beauty, physically transforms into an act of salat.
The entire universe becomes a prayer mat. Every conscious act is a prayer.
Yes. The universe is not a secular mechanism, it is a profoundly sacred symphony. The texts explicitly tell us that every single creature in the heavens and the earth performs its own unique salat. It is a universal state of submission.
Even animals.
Have you ever watched a bird, like an eagle or a kite, spread its wings and glide on the invisible thermals high up in the sky?
Yes, it is a masterclass in aerodynamics and seemingly effortless grace.
According to this spiritual worldview, that bird is not just flying, it is praying. Its aerodynamic perfection, its hollow bones, its absolute surrender to the air currents, that is its salat.
Oh,
It is intuitively fulfilling its unique, beautiful purpose in the grand architecture of creation. Every living being, from the microscopic organisms to the massive whales in the deep, knows its own unique prayer and its own method of glorifying the divine.
that completely shifts the existential weight we carry. If a bird's prayer is the perfection of its flight, what is human prayer beyond the ritual? What is the unique, beautiful action that only you as an individual can contribute to the universe? That is the question we should be waking up with every day.
Exactly. And the most breathtaking part of this entire cosmic architecture is that the flow of prayer is not unidirectional.
What do you mean?
It isn't just us, the birds and the mountains, sending prayers up to the divine. The highest, most profound form of salat mentioned in the texts is the prayer performed by the divine and the angels over us.
Wait, the divine prays over humanity. How does the ultimate permanent pray?
The divine salat upon us is the active manifestation of the grace we've been discussing this entire time. It is the act of reaching into the depths and bringing our souls out of those terrifying deep-sea layers of darkness and pulling us into the pure, high-definition light.
The rescue mission.
When we strive to do what is beautiful, when we fight our ego and try to polish the glass of our hearts, the divine responds with a prayer of elevation. He pours light upon light into our existence, rescuing us from the hopelessness of the Cartesian dream and anchoring us in reality.
This has been an absolutely staggering intellectual and spiritual journey. We started at the very bottom, in the trenches of existential despair, looking at a text message that genuinely asked if we were already living in hell.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
And step by meticulous step, we have walked out of that localized darkness. We explored how the absence of beauty is the true marker of hell, and how modern atheism is largely a trauma response, a symptom of a deep, unmet yearning for the ultimate permanent in a world of shifting sand.
We examine the necessity of tawakkul, absolute trust, as the only logical cure for hopelessness. And we recognize that true belief must penetrate much deeper than just mimicking the choreography of submission.
We traveled to the mountains of Kashmir and smelled the saffron of spiritual unveiling, confronting our own arrogance and realizing that we must stop plugging our ears during the thunderstorm if we ever hope to see the light.
We grounded our floating anxieties with Descartes, realizing that our very ability to doubt proves our existence, and that waking up from the dream means stepping into a reality completely saturated with tajalli, the divine beauty.
And finally, we dismantled the ego, learning that the ultimate practice of faith is the pursuit of Ihsan, acting as the master sound engineer of our lives, doing what is beautiful in every moment so that our daily existence becomes a universal prayer, as natural and perfect as a bird spreading its wings.
It all distills back to that one profound instruction, like what you do, and do what is beautiful.
As we close this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a new paradigm to mull over. We spent a lot of time talking about human veils, our arrogance, our obstinacy, but I want you to consider the external manufactured veils we interact with every single day.
The digital ones.
Think about the digital architecture of our modern world. The algorithms on your phone are literally mathematically designed to feed you outrage, comparison, and despair. They are optimized for unsatisfactoriness. They are algorithmic veils.
They really are.
Tomorrow morning, when you inevitably unlock your screen, I want you to look at the content you are consuming and ask yourself a critical question. Is this piece of technology reflecting the tajalli, the beauty of the divine, or is it a manufactured darkness deliberately designed to make me forget I have eyes at all? Keep seeking the beauty, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Broadview Deep Dive. We will catch you on the next one.